Thank you. The next bylaws are brought on pursuant to the requirements by the provincial government. If any member of council wishes to speak to these, we would need a motion on the floor.
So moved.
So we'll take that as moving the motions as written. Is there a seconder? Seconded. Discussion. Here we go. I'm anticipating a bit of interesting discussion on this.
Yeah,
Councillor Watt.
You'll have to suffer through me reading because I want to get this right. So I'm not an agent of the federal government and I don't represent the province. I was voted in by the citizens of West Vancouver and I'll continue to represent their best interests. I'll vigorously oppose any entity that seeks to destroy the nature and character of our community. The province has been challenging the basic principles of democracy. They're treating private property as though it was their own and moving at a reckless pace as they paint a broad brushstroke across the province. I don't recall a time in Canadian history where we've seen such egregious policies raining down from above. The blanket rezoning mandated by Bill 44 abolishes the local planning process and ignores decades of careful decision-making made by those who understand and represent their municipalities. Ironically, it plays directly into the hands of developers and speculators. Canada is a democratic nation. Our unelected premier has not called a referendum. He hasn't invited the citizens to vote to shift the municipal planning decision-making process to the province. Instead, our premier, who again was not elected by the people, is ramming legislation through at an alarming speed. This needs to be stopped in its tracks before we no longer recognize our cities and province. The citizens of West Vancouver didn't choose to open the floodgates to more than 1 million permanent and temporary residents a year. We didn't choose to have the housing crisis downloaded onto our backs. We're a green, desirable community, and to sanction reckless densification in inappropriate locations will alter our community in perpetuity. There will be no going back. The increasing normalization and acceptance of the NDP's overarching policies are a slap in the face to all who support democracy. All across the province, like lemmings, we're walking off the cliff. I implore the rest of council to think very carefully before approving the rezoning of any neighbourhood in West Van under force by an autocratic provincial government. That's what I have to say.
Thank you, Councillor Watt. Any further discussion? Councillor Cassidy?
Well, I will be short on words. I've already made my comments on the situation in the last two council meetings. Under no circumstances would I ever vote in favor of Bill 44. No. Thank you. This is a democratic country, and this individual who wishes to impose this upon us has absolutely no comprehension of government at a municipal level. I would not in any size, shape, or form ever support this bill. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. You know, we started this day with this incredible park dedication, and I believe part of that was a belief in us showing us our dedication to our quality of life here on the North Shore. 6 years ago, during the campaign for the 2018 election, a young woman around 20 years old got up to speak to a group of us who were running for election. She was near tears and she goes, you know, I'm 20 years old and I'm going to school at UBC. And I want to be independent. And the way I could do that is if my parents could build a suite in the basement of our home and I could live there affordably and go to school and be independent. But at the time, we didn't allow secondary suites in West Vancouver. That was 6 years ago. Shortly after, I think maybe even 3 years after that, we moved into a policy that now says you can have a home, a suite, and a coach house. We recognized that there was a demand for an alternative type of housing, more affordable options for families and people to stay together. And in my time, and now we're in a situation where staff has shown us that because of this policy, the provincial guidelines don't really, or bylaws don't actually apply to our single family dwelling zones like that. And I applaud this because in all my life,
I've learned that once you're reacting to things, you're actually not going to have a great result. We've been proactive. We've recognized it. We've set ourselves up for the type of gentle infill that provides the type of housing that we need in our community that works. Staff have gone back and researched, doing a number of properties that have been parceled together. I think there was CD10 zoned, I can't remember what they're called, but I recognize, because they're not under our single-family dwelling zoning, that they need to be considered for this policy, and you'll see in the report that they've recommended this. But if you go visit those sites, these are all kind of unique parcels with odd access, and quite frankly, I can't even imagine how you could build, there's barely one house hanging on a cliff, so how you could possibly, paint the policy across those and have any sort of result, I don't know. But I do think the message here is that we've been proactive. So we have nearly 700 units in queue for coming on to the market through Rogers Creek and various other projects that have been already approved. We are on the cusp of discussing the approval of Cypress Village that would see an increase in our population of 25%. And these are all things that we've done that have a planning and a purpose in our community that work in our community. They're not this reactive policy that just starts this whack-a-mole type development of let's do it here, let's do it there, let's see where it lands. It's a little unnerving. And these plans that are in queue, they're all visionary about the future of West Vancouver and where we could, would, should be. So, further to that, there was an article in the North Shore News recently written about how West Vancouver's growth is slow again, and it was interesting that he was trying to attribute it to housing demand or housing builds. But actually, for rental, we've got an entire tower at Park Royal empty, and then some in the other tower. For residential, we have the Sanctuary and various other buildings that are sitting there that are empty. I spoke with the real estate board. There's 30% more on the market right now, and sales are only up 4% from next year. So we're not stopping people from coming to our community. They're living here as they can. So I just don't see how we should be entertaining this policy right now. We're on the cusp, like I say, of Cypress Village. And until that's decided, a transformational impact on our community and infrastructure and population. To layer this policy on top of that, I feel really uncomfortable. So I'm not going to support these bills and suggest that the government be a little more patient with us and just let us do our good work that we've been doing.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Is there any further discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? The motion is defeated unanimously. Thank you. That was that, wasn't it?